Kong's leader acknowledges record voter turnout at district council elections, highlights public dissatisfaction with her government. And Chief Executive Carrie Lam concedes the handling of months of political unrest is at the center of that discontent. But so far, she's offering no concessions.
We were aware of the large number of voters coming out to cast a vote, perhaps not only to select a preferred candidate to sit on the district council, but also to express a view on many issues in society, including, I would readily accept that, including deficiencies in governance, including unhappiness with the time taken to deal with the current unstable environment, and of course to end violence. So I said that we will seriously reflect on these views expressed to us and improve governance in the future of our work.
Mrs. Lam's comments come after pro-democracy candidates secured a landslide victory in the local polls. The vote has been widely seen as a litmus test of support for the anti-government movement. The city's leader thanked residents for voting peacefully and hoped the calm weekend was not just for the elections.
Resorting to violence will not give us that way forward. So please help us to maintain that relative calm and peace that we have seen in the last week or so, and provide a good basis for Hong Kong to move forward.
Mrs. Lam also outlined the setting up of an independent review committee to look at the cause of social unrest in Hong Kong. But critics say she's not addressing the real issue.
Delay tactic, to me, is another way showing that Carrie Lam is not trying to address the problem directly. She would like to make it sounds good, but in actual fact, it's a delay tactic, and try to take away one of the direction of the investigation towards the police brutalities. Because today, when we are talking about the setting up of independent inquiry commissions, we have all the legal framework in order to set up, and they have the power to investigate the whole issues. So you only need to find one credible retired judge to lead the independent inquiry commissions.
A sign that the city is returning to normal will be the reopening tomorrow morning of the Cross Harbour Tunnel. The major transport link between Kowloon and Hong Kong Island has been closed for almost 2 weeks.
Anti-government protesters had barricaded the tunnel and set toll booths on fire in a bid to paralyze the city's transport system. The closure has led to congestion at alternative routes.
While there's been a sense of calm for the last few days, demonstrations at lunchtime have continued in some districts, and more protests are still being planned.
And for the latest on this, our correspondent Wei Du joins us from Hong Kong. Wei, what's been the reaction to Carrie Lam's remarks today?
Yeah, Glenna, one thing you guys have already mentioned was whatever Carrie Lam said today was largely expected. There was nothing new coming out of this press conference, so the reaction has been far short of enthusiastic. Several pro-democracy lawmakers criticized Lam for being tone deaf, and actually one of them called her shameless for saying that the people, after such a landslide loss for her government allies, she would still go on to say that people expressed a wide range of opinions through the election results, and she thinks the core demand of the people of Hong Kong is for things to go back to normal and for violence to end. This despite the fact that the candidates who were running on this message, almost most of them have lost their seats. There was also quite some confusion as to what exactly she meant by that independent review committee, and in the afternoon, Carrie Lam took to Facebook to clarify. And she says that what she has in mind is for a panel of experts to come together and to form a committee that's based on the Tottenham model, which is what the UK government did after the Tottenham riots in 2011. But as we were saying all afternoon, this is also not something new. She said her government had always had this plan to invite such experts to study the causes of this social unrest. And it's worth noting what she has in mind is very, very different from what the protesters are demanding. The protesters in camp wants an independent inquiry primarily into the conduct of the police. I spoke briefly with Alvin Yong, the head of a civic party here. He also said without the ability to look into what the police has done, this independent review would simply not be enough. It's also interesting to remember that this is not the first time the government has tried to borrow some experience from the UK in the wake of the Tottenham riots. If you remember, Hong Kong's police watchdog, the IPCC, formed a panel of foreign experts back in September. And the panel was actually headed by a former UK police officer who led the investigation into the Tottenham riots. The panel gave its advice to the government earlier this month. It's concluded that the powers that the IPCC has so far simply is not enough. And the government, for its part, has since really tried to downplay this recommendation. Guys.
Wei, Carrie Lam's remarks aside, what's happening on the ground? Has there been any change in the protest calls in terms of tone and substance?
It's been a lot quieter on the ground. That's for everyone to see. The core demands are not changing, but we have an additional immediate demand ever since yesterday. That's, of course, for the police to end the siege of Poly University and to let the remaining protesters go free. Yesterday, the newly elected pro-democracy district councillors went up to the university hoping to get in. Nothing came out of it, but the police did offer a concession, which is for the protesters to leave without being arrested immediately. So far, no one that we know of has taken up this offer. Earlier today, the university officials went in trying to look for the protesters. They didn't find anyone. Carrie Lam has promised that the police were not moving on their own until all the other means have been exhausted. So that's the situation so far. And what's really important here is to think about how long this peace Hong Kong has enjoyed in the past few days can last without any significant concessions from the government. As you guys were saying, the lunchtime protests are back. They've been rather peaceful so far. A series of actions that have been planned for this weekend, especially a plan to surround the airport again on Sunday, this to mark the 100-day mark of that injunction the airport has had obtained. All these things could potentially turn violent again. So the clock is really ticking. A close pro-Beijing government ally today, Liu Siu-kai, went on the local broadcaster RTHK and said he understands after this landslide loss in the election, the government is looking at making some concessions. But his feeling, he said, is that these concessions still would not be able to placate the protesters.
All right, Ray, thanks for that update. Wei, speaking to us from Hong Kong.